So this might come as a surprise to some of you, but I'm getting ready to pull the engine and transmission out of the TD8, and I'm going to do a rebuild on it. It's still running, everything still works, but I'd like to get it where it doesn't use oil. I'd like to get the transmission in better shape so it shifts a little better and that kind of thing. But anyway, I'm getting ready to pull the radiator out. I had to raise my hoist. I added some extensions in my hoist here. This hoist I actually had in a shop that was in where I used to live, and the ceiling height was a limiting factor, so that was as tall as it could be. But I've got it set up now to where it'll go out my 12-foot overhead door, and should be high enough to pull the radiator out without, well, the other one was, well, you can see about 33 inches shorter. So I got that. I got the radiator chained up. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll see if this hoist will pick it up out of there. I hope it works. These will come out. Pretty tight fit. I got to take that loose. I forgot about that. Filming. I forgot these brackets here. This is what your oil cooler, transmission cooler swings out on. I actually thought those were mounted to the frame, but they're mounted to the radiator, so got to pull those bolts and then we can pull that sucker out of there maybe. See why I had to raise my hoist up now. Just couldn't reach far enough. Okay, so one of the other things I've got a problem with is a harmonic balancer. You can see the rubbers separating. And I know there was a subscriber or commenter on one of my videos said you probably ought to look in replacing that, and he's right. I was glad I can't remember his name, but he said, hey, you might want to you might want to pay attention to that. It could cause crankshaft failure. Could probably cause some other problems as well. The problem I run into is you can no longer buy those. And this engine was used in it was also used in some international tractors. So I thought, well, I'll look up Case IH, and I called my local Komatsu dealer here in Oklahoma City. He gave me the part number. I ran it through Case. Case said they changed the part number, but they no longer make them. So what I'm up against now is, I think I've found a place, and I'm gonna call him tomorrow. I think I found a guy that can rebuild it. He says he rebuilds them. Apparently, this is something that old engines, like old cars, old engines, you run into problems like that. So that is the plan there. I'm going to try to see if he can help me out. And I looked up on his website, it showed that he had actually, I think he's actually done these before for a 239. I don't know if he's done one for a turbo, but I think they're the exact same balancer, I think. I know the part number I got from Case IH was the same part number was on the turbo as well as the non-turbo 239 diesel. So there's that. But when I pull this out, there's one front motor mount here, and then there's one on each side of the bell housing here. But the way they recommend you pull these out, all your pumps and all your torque converter are bolted to the back of the engine, and there's just a drive shaft between it and the transmission. So you can't just pull the motor without pulling the torque converter as well. And that's one reason you got to pull the radiator, is you've got to get everything loose and slide it forward. I guess you go up a bit and then forward. So I've got to drain the transmission. I'm going to go ahead and pull the belly pins, drain the transmission oil. Since the hydraulic system is tied into one of the pumps, I got to drain the hydraulic tank and unhook a whole bunch of hoses. All these hoses, most of the hoses got to come loose. And I'm going to probably concentrate on doing that first. I just kind of noticed, it looks to me like you could possibly pull the dash out of here with minimal effort at this point, and I might do that. Anyway, that's the plan. So far, radiator's out. I got the oil drained out of the hydraulic tank. Got the oil drained out of the transmission. And I'm getting ready to, I think I'm going to take the dash out because there's only 4 bolts that holds it in. Other than some pressure gauge lines, which I've got, I think pretty much all of them are unhooked except for my pressure gauge here off the transmission pressure gauge here is still connected. So we'll take it off if I find the right wrench. This is always the right wrench, right? Anyway, I think it'll be a whole lot easier with the dash just completely out of it. I mean, there's nothing really at this point holding me back on that. And I don't know if you've ever worked on one of these little things, but they're kind of tough to get in. I mean, you got about, I don't know, what is that, 14 inches here? And when you're reaching in this way or this way, you know, you're almost just wedged in here. So with the dash out, I'll be able to get, see, a lot of these hydraulic lines have to come loose off. You got your charge pump over here for your transmission, and your pressure pump for your hydraulics is on the other side. You've got a torque converter line coming in off your what do they call that, regulator valve, and then you've got a cooler line coming off here, goes up the front to your cooler. This is, I believe that one goes to the, oh, I don't know what that line goes to. Uh-oh. Anyway, I was out in the field here a while back with it, and blew out the pressure hose off the hydraulic pump, and it goes from the pump to up under the seat into this valve here. So I'll be pulling that loose. Like I say, everything's coming off. It's all got to go. But I think with the hood, or with the dash and the hood and everything out of the way, when I pull the transmission, I've got to pull the seat, I've got to pull this valve box here, or steering valve. It's basically just bolted to this plate. So we're getting into almost everything's going to be gone. That's how much transmission oil came out of it. There's still some dribbling out of some hoses. So, and there's about 13 gallons of hydraulic oil came out of it. So anyway, this is what they look like before they come apart. I've got a plug kit that I'm trying to keep track of all my plugs. I don't know where that line goes. It goes back down to the return on the, goes into the suction on the side of the transmission pump. That's the word I was looking for. So anyway, there's not a lot of wiring harnesses, there's not a lot of stuff on here you got to deal with, so it's pretty nice, really pretty easy to work on. A little dirty. My rear main seal's been leaking on it for a while. Like I said, I had a hose break on my hydraulics which soaked everything in the belly pan, and it's out there, it's pretty dirty. I had it all clean, and anyway, yeah, that's kind of where we're at this point. Just taking stuff apart, that's about it. Yeah, there's just a lot of hoses that's got to come off. And it's going to be interesting to pull all this apart. So my goal for now is to get the engine out of it. I'd like to get it tore down. I'd like to find out where I'm at on buying parts, if I'm going to need to machine work on a crank or anything like that. I'm kind of hoping it's a simple rebuild where I just put some new bearings and new pistons and liners in and take off from there. I'm not sure it'll be that easy. Most likely it won't be, but it'd sure be nice if something went right. You know, something went easy. Don't always go that way, but yeah, anyway, the little old DT239 is coming out. So Anyway, I just thought I'd give you a little update. I'm not moving real fast. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I'm kind of treating it like one. Work a little, rest a little. Got to pull that U-joint apart. Yeah, that'll be fun. But, like I say, it'll be easier with the hood out of the way. That's my plan. Ready to try to lift. Not sure. I think we're just kind of hanging up in the frame. Hydraulic hose catching there a little bit. Lift a little forward, I hope it goes. Maybe, if it holds up, it don't break. She is coming out. I'll spin her sideways here if I can. There she is. She ain't got no motor no more. Wow. This is something I've been needing to do ever since I bought it, really. It's burned oil since day one. I fixed some leaks on it. But I couldn't fix the rear main seal in the tractor. Pan gasket started leaking on it a little bit too. I tightened the bolts, but you can't drop the pan on account of the cross arm or crossbar and the dozer, whatever they call that. And so, you know, but there is the transmission. That's the next monster I gotta get out of it. I think what I'm gonna do for now is probably drop the pan, or I need to drop the oil out of it. I need to pull my balancer. I need to see if I can get the guy to rebuild that. You can see that rubber's just, it's not done its job anymore. It's just brittle, and that ain't a good thing. That can cause a lot of trouble. So I'm gonna get that fixed. I pulled the injector pump because the front seal was leaking on it. Got a little diesel in the oil the other day. I fixed it. I figured out I had scratched the seal surface in the housing whenever I pulled the seal out of it. You know, it's just kind of a I don't know, one of those things where you just, I wasn't being near cautious enough. But anyway, this is a good look at the back of the torque converter. Here's your output shaft, goes to your transmission. Can't remember, I think this is the input line on your torque converter. This is the back to drain valve, well, I say that. This one goes up to your cooler. And I think this is just kind of a, this is what they call a dry torque converter. So your flywheel housing is actually, where your starter sits is actually dry. So it doesn't have a sump pump in it. If you can see, that's a Rockford clutch Hallmaster torque converter. This torque converter works really good. I don't know that I need to go through it, but if any of you guys got suggestions on that, I will say this: whenever I first start the machine up in the morning, it takes a while for it to build up transmission pressure. I don't know if that's got to do with the torque converter. I do know that I put a brand new, this is a brand new charge pump. So I don't understand unless it's just something in the transmission. So if any of you guys got any insight on that, I'd be happy to know it. This is going to be something I'm going to try to document most of the stuff I do to it. I'll try to make some videos of it. Pretty big project. Just the engine's not that big a deal, but you know, getting into the transmission. I've done a power shift a long time ago, and I've done an engine rebuild a long time ago, so none of this is real fresh, and I'm getting older. So anyway, probably could use any good advice anybody's got. What my plan is to pull this, I plan to pull the motor down and try to mic everything, and I'll most likely just take the head to a machine shop and have them go through it. I think the head's been replaced, and since it's been replaced, it may not need a lot of work, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, this is this is something I've actually wanted to do to this machine for a long time. So, you know, I hate an engine that burns oil. This thing ran really good. It had a lot of power. It ran, you know, this little dozer has been impressive to me ever since I've got it, as far as how much work it can do for its size. So, you know, I don't really feel bad spending money on it. I've always said dozers are money pits. You will spend more money on a dozer than a backhoe over its lifetime. I mean, that's just a, it's just a given. It's going to happen. But I wanted to note on this International, this is what they call a noose. This is a German design engine. They made these smaller than this. I think they had a 168, and they even went up to a 6-cylinder. I've never been around a 6-cylinder motor that was a noose, but it's got a cast iron oil pan and a cast iron valve cover. So weight savings was not something International was interested in. This dude is heavy, and all cast iron. I mean, just it's all there. So this is my first go into a noose diesel, and I hope it goes well. I hope I don't miss anything. I know that these engines have had some, I've seen a lot of them that have a window on the side of the block from the rod bolts breaking. So I probably need to look into new rod bolts. But at this point, I don't really know where I'm at on it. I mean, it could need a new crankshaft, could need new rods, I don't know. But the engine was not knocking, it was just burning a lot of oil. Like I say, it ran really good, had a lot of horsepower. I've always enjoyed the power it had. I mean, it's if you got a machine that's got a little bit of horsepower, it really makes it fun to run. And it would actually spin the tracks in second gear on this machine. So pretty, you know, just a pretty torquey little motor. Anyway, got to clean her up, got to pull her apart, and hopefully we will get this thing back together in good condition, and maybe she'll live a while. I hope. That's my plan. I got the exhaust manifold off this side. I just wanted to kind of note the cylinders are consistent. There's not like one that's just loaded up with oil or carbon. So I think that's a good sign. Seems to me everything's running pretty even, but consistently burning oil is still consistently burning oil. So anyway, just a little more on a tear down. I noticed this tube here is pretty brittle. That could have been causing some leaks. It doesn't look like it was leaking, but it probably would have been soon. I know, I think they had their mechanic replace the gasket on this dipstick tube. Jared was telling me about that when we went up and looked at it before I bought it, which has been a couple years ago. And I gotta say, I'm not, you know, I knew I was buying a 50-year-old dozer, so I can't I hope nobody thinks I'm mad at the people I bought this from, because I'm not. I knew what I was getting. Would I do it different next time? I don't know. Kind of like this dozer. The money was right on it. I didn't have to spend a fortune to get it bought. It's paid for itself. Actually, it's kind of kept me out of a bind a couple times, just because I've had a couple spells where the backhoe work just kind of dried up and slowed down. So, you know, the dozer's kind of kept me going. A little bit different work, a little bit different stuff to do with it. So probably my next order of business is going to be, I need to read the book. There's a couple of items like pulling the torque converter. I'm not sure how best to do that without setting it up on a stand, and I probably need to build a stand for it. That's probably going to need to happen. But my thought was, if I can get the intake manifold off, the exhaust manifold off, the starter off, alternator, of course, balancer, water manifold, then I'm going to get it to a point I can lay it on its side. What else you can do. Did I need to stop and rebuild it? No, I could have kept running it. But here's my thinking. At some point it's going to run low on oil, and it's going to do major damage, and not acceptable. This is the oil cooler, oil filter setup, and somebody liked their red sealant, but like I say, when this is in the machine, you can't really get to any of this stuff. You can't pull the oil pan. You can't, and you can't see a lot of what's going on. So this oil filter, man, that gasket there is just toast. It's just like, I can't believe that's not leaking yet. So another part of this is I want a dependable machine that I can go out and start up and run. Doesn't matter if it's 50 years old. If it'll start up and run, that's what I need. So that's where we're at right now. I think I'm gonna pull the water manifold, the dipstick tube, maybe a few other items this evening before I call it a day. Actually, pulling this engine out was not as bad as it's really not that bad, other than you got to drain all the fluids out of everything on the tractor. except for final drives and steering box. But anyway, that's where we're at with the little TD8 today, and probably where I'm going to leave it for now. I hope to keep doing some additions. Another thing I wanted to show you, the radiator for some of you up north. I don't know if you can see in there very good. I'm gonna go ahead and take this to a shop in Oklahoma City, and I'm gonna let them clean it, because it's hard to see, but there's a buildup in those tubes, and it never really ran hot, but I did have to really keep it cleaned out. I really had to blow the dirt out of it and keep it washed out. So I know it's not cooling as good as it should. So the radiator's going to the shop at some point. I don't know when, but I may need to call them and see what their schedule is. I'm still up in the air on the torque converter. I think I'm going to leave it alone. I don't think I'm going to mess with it. I may put a new seal in this drive shaft here while I got it out. Torque converter seemed to have good stall speed. Didn't seem to lack power, never overheated. Transmission always ran cool, even on really hot days. So I think I'm pretty good with that. But anyway, that's where I'm at today. Okay, here's the intake side of the head. There's a little bit more oil up here toward the front. I almost think this thing's been sucking a little bit of air out there. Look at this. We found a major problem. So, okay. Somebody. You know, Jeff Anderson was just talking about silica content in his engine. And this dirty stuff, it's been sucking dirt. It's been eating dirt. So, looks like they might have put the gasket on backwards. Let's see here. What if we flip that over? Aha! It fits that way. It would seal that way. This thing has been running with the manifold gasket. Hey, mosquitoes. This is troubling. So I could be wrong about this. I'm going to say this thing's just eat up with sand, dirt, dust. How about that? Huh. I never expected to see that, but if you look at this cylinder here, it's been eating more dirt than the others. Looks like it, you can see the trail. Being a turbocharged engine, it might blow just about as much out of here as it sucks in, but I'm betting this is not a good thing, because I don't know. That's just really something right there. Anyway, still going with the teardown here. Like I say, I'm gonna have to probably at some point stop and build a stand to set this thing on. Also noticed, whoever put the starter on it last decided that bottom bolt's not that important. I can't say I blame them, because it's pretty tough to get to it when it's on the tractor. Probably going to need to change the starter too. That's another thing I might want recommendations on. I know some people have changed these to a different, like a smaller starter. This is not a wet starter. It doesn't have a wet flywheel, so don't have to be sealed, but I wouldn't mind putting a little bit more modern starter on there. I've seen some guys that's had to modify the frame of the dozer to put one on them, but anyway, that is an interesting discovery right there. Glad I found that.